I'm doing okay. Actually, I'm very tired. I did not sleep much at work last night, and that's been the case sort of all week. So I've been a bit of a grumpy Gus. We'll talk about that a little, but still trying to stay positive. I get to go home and see my great family tomorrow, so that's always something to look forward to. I got this weird quirk where I'm always looking one day ahead. That's sort of how I live my life. So the day before I go into work, I'm always like grumping around, and then when I'm at work, it's not as bad. So like the last day before I get to come home from work, I'm always very excited. So even though I'm tired, I'm excited. So get to go home tomorrow, and we'll look forward to that. It's going pretty good. So I'm glad to spend a little time with you all this evening. Unless something happens, I'm off the clock as always, but we'll see what happens. Doing these late night streams, but it's great to be able to talk about some of these issues. So we got a good show tonight. I thought we'd spend some time talking about Russia, Ukraine, some other stuff. What'll be free flowing. Tomorrow evening, I'm supposed to possibly be interviewing author Scott Horton, sort of like libertarian, very critical of Ukraine-Russia business and U.S. interventionism. So I think that'll be a good interview, but I'm waiting to hear back. We'll see how that goes. Also, just a couple personal things. Oh, shit. Tired. To talk about as well. I'm probably on the past 2 nights. I'm probably on like 4 hours of sleep. I just had work stuff go on, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's been. I was going to close the show last night talking about sort of the cultural shift that you're starting to see in all these institutions, like entertainment places, where you see people now sort of doing the Trump dance, things like that. Oh, you're watching Destiny. We'll talk a little about Destiny if you want as well. But yeah, I mean it's interesting. If I had my druthers, I don't want politics in my entertainment much. I don't mind it with certain people. Like I don't mind if you sort of made politics front and central to your art from the get go. Like like him or hate him, like Rage Against the Machine. I know that criticism is they're basically for the machine now, but were you surprised if you went to a Rage Against the Machine concert and you were like, hey, this is political? Well, you shouldn't have been. Or maybe, like in my world, the Dead Kennedys. That was the very first show I ever went and saw. Excuse me. Was the Dead Kennedys, you know? So, I mean, their lead singer called himself Jello Biafra based on a conflict in Africa. So, I mean, you kind of know what to expect. But it does get a bit annoying when you turn on like a sporting event or late night comedy and you're just inundated with it over and over again. I don't think doing the Trump dance is the equivalent of that. How many people doing the Trump dance are doing so because they support Trump versus how many are doing it because it's culturally a funny thing right now? I don't know. I'm trying to think what an equivalent could be. Um, I just don't know. Like, it's. I guess you could say like, would you be being political if you did the Reagan, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall? Like, I feel that that was iconic enough, and the cadence of that were that it's like you could say that you could like be telling a joke and be like tear down this wall, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're a big Reagan fan or you're specifically saying wow his policy decisions leading to the tearing down of the wall in Germany. Yeah, I don't know that that means that. The problem is like the celebrations in sports, like when you get a goal or when you knock someone out or when you get a touchdown or you get a sack. Hey, what's up, Alex? How's it going? Uh, you know, it's those are going to be, you're not really talking. And to me, the Trump thing surpasses even politics. It's a dance. Someone mentioned Tebow. That's a good point. Tebow, if you don't remember, Tim Tebow was this quarterback, very religious, and he would do like the kneel. It was sort of like a prayer thing. But then people would do the Tebow that I don't think were doing it for religious reasons. It was just an iconic thing. You recognize it's like the LeBron entrance, where he throws the powder up. Like people do that, or the Conor McGregor slash Vince McMahon like walk. You like those sort of things. Or I've even seen people doing the ridiculous ray gun lady from Australia in the breakdance competition, right? You see people doing that ridiculous dance. Dances are fun, right? Like, and it's what it is. It's memeing in real life. And sometimes memeing doesn't mean you're embracing those politics. No, maybe. John Jones, I mean, he does the Trump dance and then he's handing the belt to Trump. Yeah, that's a guy who's talking about politics, right? But I don't know that all these NFL players that were doing the dance, or I saw a couple soccer players, I don't know that they're big Trump supporters. They may be apolitical and you're just like, it's funny. People recognize the dance. Something funny to do. Nonetheless, I don't think that's bringing politics into things as much as kneeling for the national anthem. That's clearly a political statement. And it's a more aggressive political statement because you understand the implications of that. When Kaepernick and others kneeled for the national anthem, they know that symbolically the national anthem and taking your hat off and standing, that means something to a lot of people. And so criticizing through kneeling during that is designed to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Eyebrow raising. It's designed to be something that makes you go, oh, that, it wouldn't be the same effect, for example, as kneeling after a touchdown. Because the sort of implication for the audience isn't the same thing. Now, having said that, I was perfectly fine with Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem. I didn't like it. It made me dislike Kaepernick, but should he have the right to do so? Yeah, absolutely. And I don't necessarily like politicians weighing in, saying, well, he should be fired. I didn't like when Trump did that. I made videos about it. I didn't care for that. Do I have a problem if his team says, hey, you're bringing us negative publicity, you're out of here? No, that's what happens, right? We as consumers have the right to say, well, we're pissed off that the 49ers fired Kaepernick, so we're not going to like the 49ers. I told the story. I live in a small town, rural Pennsylvania. Football's big. My dad's a bartender. I used to be a bartender. Sundays, people were at the bar. The bar my dad worked at for like a year or so would not play football games because all of the kneeling going on during the anthem. There was a big moment here. If you don't follow Pittsburgh sports, you might not be aware of this situation. There was a offensive lineman named Alejandro Villanueva, who was a Army Ranger, I believe. I could be wrong about his specific title, but he's a badass. He was one of the upper echelons in one of the branches of the military as far as sort of the type of training that it would require. And this guy Villanueva was a good story even beyond that. But to see someone who served our country and then go off to have success, and a lineman's not particularly a position where you're going to get a lot of accolades to the average viewer. It's not like you're going to win an MVP or anything like that. But Villanueva actually surpassed, I think, what the expectations were. He played tackle. That's right. I think he surpassed what the expectations were. It was a really good story. It was a feel-good, one of those feel-good NFL stories that, you could see anytime the Steelers played, that was going to be mentioned on a national broadcast. Oh, this guy was a hero, and, now he's supposed to serve as, etc. Okay, good, great. That's fantastic. Yeah, he was a wide receiver in college. That is. Nate, stick around, by the way. I was going to talk to you here a little later. Anyways, there was an incident where the Steelers decided they were going to stay in the tunnel for the national anthem, or in the locker room. And depending on who you believe, it seems like there was some sort of miscommunication. And Villanueva, who takes the national anthem very seriously, I mean, he served as an Army Ranger. He came out of the tunnel, hand over heart, helmet off for the national anthem, and he was the only one. And so then it was, well, did he disobey team orders? Villanueva claims, no, I thought we were all coming out. The Steelers were like, oh, what's happening? You know, why did he go out? And that was the moment that pissed off so many people that I know. Just infuriated them. That were like, I'm never watching football again. Most of them watch football now. But for like a year or two, they stopped. Bubblegum Gun, thanks for the $5. Says, being born in a country that doesn't mean that the guy owns you, even though that's what you would like. But the government has no right due to lack of justification. So that was sort of the moment. That's different than like a Trump dance. Like, if Joe Biden had a dance and people started doing it, yeah, there would be people like, screw that player, he did the Biden dance. But it wouldn't get 1/100th of the reaction that the like national anthem stuff did. So there is a difference. I understand though, if you really hate Trump and you want to tune into a sporting event and you're like, shit, now I gotta watch people doing this Trump dance. I hate that. I think Trump's this horrible person. I get that. And what I would say to you is, tough, I guess. That's what culture's been for decades now, the opposite direction. I'm sorry. We tried to tell you, many of us tried to say, man, like, I liked entertainment like Johnny Carson. He would make fun of politicians, but you had no idea what Johnny Carson's political leanings were. He just made fun of people. That's it. And it was, when he would wade into making fun of politicians, most of the time it was pretty lighthearted. And now it's changed. And the pendulum's starting to swing back. So for the people that are upset about it and go, I thought you didn't want politics in sports, it's completely different. Most of it. It's not intentionally inflammatory like kneeling for the anthem. And tough shit, I guess. We see this a lot from the Democrats. They feel entitled. The standard should be their way. When it's them on top, that's great. The standards are great. Hey, if we want to do this shit in entertainment, so be it. That should be allowed. It should be allowed, granted. But people have the right to say, I'm tired of this. I'm just tuning in for entertainment reasons. And now the pendulum's starting to swing. The other thing that's worth talking about this is, I think that it's becoming more acceptable for cultural figures to say, no, we don't give a shit. We don't care. Yeah, Alex, I completely agree with you there. I've said this about I grew up, man, when I was like, two things that I used to love that I barely consume anymore, both in the comedy field. I loved late night comedy. I loved particularly Conan O'Brien. I watch Conan almost every night. Bubblegum Gun, thanks for the $2. What's next? Kneeling at video game major leagues? Yeah. But I loved watching Conan O'Brien's show. And I would tune into some Letterman. Wasn't as much of a Leno fan. But for years when I was a teenager, I loved that. And so that's 20 years ago. But loved it. Like all those old Conan skits, thought they were great. I used to love sketch comedy. I loved Kids in the Hall, SNL, in the mid-90s. It was great. Loved it. And I love stand-up comedy. That stand-up got me through a lot of weird, tough times in my life. Landon Merwing, thanks for the $10, says, no message, just support for the channel. Really appreciate it. Thank you. In the year 2000. Yeah, it was great. When they would do the secrets, where they'd have celebrities do secrets. It's funny shit. This is good stuff. But, now it's like, my problem isn't that it's political. That's fine. Like, if you want to make politics to make fun of Trump as your comedy, just have it be funny. And the problem is, it becomes harder and harder to get funny when everyone's doing it. By the very nature of something, like, for example, if every stand-up comedian takes something not political, if every stand-up comedian's doing like Jerry Seinfeld type bits, what's the deal with airline food? Like, you might say when you see Seinfeld do it, like, hey, that's funny. I haven't heard someone do that. But if literally like every stand-up comic's doing it, you're like, it has to be spectacular to stand out then. And most of the time it's not. And I think that's the big problem. And then the other problem is being funny secondary to a lot of these comedians, to having a message. They're going for applause as opposed to laughter. And to me, it's really that and a lot of woke shit, which we can get into some other day. I think it's really diminished comedy. And then there's just, are comedies profitable in Hollywood anymore for various reasons? So there's a lot of factors. Hopefully we get back to it. But it was never, oh, I don't like this because you're making fun of a group that I like. It was never that. You just get annoyed when it's like, right, I get it. I'm going to tune in to any of the 8 late night shows and it's going to be the same shit. Trump supporters are stupid. Trump's bad, blah, blah, blah. At some point you're like, all right, I'm done. And so there's a difference. There's a difference between, oh, I won't laugh at something that's at my own expense. Of course I will. I even said that in my channel. When people come in with insults at me, all I ask is that the insults be funny. You know, if the insult's just like, ooh, you're fat, it's like, right, come up with something clever though with it, right? That's fine. But anyways, so yeah, that's what I was gonna say last night. We'll get this real quick. I don't know how much I have to say on this. The Russia-Ukraine stuff, I mean, Biden, supposedly Biden, but not really Biden because we don't know who's really running the country right now. The people behind Biden have gone ahead and gave Ukraine the okay to use U.S. long-range missiles to attack the country of Russia properly. This is an escalation. If you try the old shoe on the other foot test, imagine that the United States invades Iraq and China sends Iraq missiles and then allows them to stage at a base in, say, Mexico and launch Chinese missiles into the United States. What would the United States think about China? Will we be like, well, it's just business as usual? Or will we say, that's a line too far? Now, I understand there are differences. Some people thought that the Iraq war was justified, etc., etc. But from the perspective of the Iraqis, it wasn't justified. Just like from the perspective of the Ukrainians, Russia's invasion isn't justified, which I happen to agree with. It's not justified. But if the United States has been playing this weird, like, we're just funding, but we're not really, and Russia's been like, this would be a line too far. And now that line has been crossed. I hope that we have a more peaceful outcome. I've continued to want peace from day one of this invasion. I'm not a Putin supporter. If it was up to me, Putin and Russia would fall flat in their face today, realize that we don't have popular support for this war back home anymore. We have to bring all the troops back immediately. To me, that's the optimal outcome. But that's not going to happen. And so I want some sort of peaceful resolution. And I worry, no, I can't do call-ins unless I'm at home. I worry that this will make a peaceful resolution more difficult. And it may directly draw the United States into conflict. Right. Jacob Barry's going to say, but didn't Russia escalate the war? Yes, Russia started the war and has escalated it many times. And didn't the United States escalate the war in Iraq? Yes, they did. Didn't the United States escalate when they bombed Syria? Yes. Didn't NATO escalate when they bombed Libya? Yes. And what would the United States have thought if those countries have been provided weaponry by our enemies like Russia, China, and then staging to launch those weapons directly into the population of the United States? Now, I think that it's incredibly dangerous, and the timing of it's incredibly skeptical. Why you would do this before the incoming Trump administration? If this was something that you planned on doing, why not have done it 6 months ago? Why wait until your side loses the election? I think that it's likely to make the situation more hostile and lead to more deaths and possibly lead to a direct confrontation between the United States and Russia, which would be horrific. If you look at it with rose-colored glasses, you could say maybe it gives Trump more of a bargaining chip to come in and say, listen, we'll take these sort of things off the table if we have some sort of peaceful resolution. Maybe. All I'm saying is we are closer to World War III than any time since the Cold War. Regardless of what you think of Russia's failures in Ukraine, and I think if you're being honest, I think that you would say Russia has underperformed expectations, at least initially in Ukraine. They are still a nuclear superpower. Ben, thanks for $10, says, watching a video on US versus China potential war was saying how important NATO is for shutting off China's imports, amongst other things. Never decided how I felt in Trump's position on NATO. I think NATO is an outdated alliance that makes escalation more likely. So, for me, I think that it's okay, even if you support this, to take a step back and say, we are escalating. There are steps that seem to be escalations that could lead to a direct U.S. conflict in a war, not with a country like Afghanistan, not with a country like Iraq, not with a country like Libya, not with a country like Syria, but with Russia. And that's serious. That would be very, very bad for the world. So I hope that there could be a more peaceful resolution. That's what it feels like to me, that they're making a mess that'll make things more difficult. So then if Trump starts to criticize U.S. intelligence, they'll say, oh, but look how important it is now. We're on the cusp of war with Russia. See how important it is now to continue to fund Ukraine? We shall see. What else is there to talk about? It's interesting to me to see sort of the, how do I want to put this? The gatekeeping that you see occurring within the left and the Democratic Party right now. So there's a lot of division, which was always going to occur because they built this coalition of groups that had huge differences. When you build your coalition based on identity politics, you're going to have groups that clash with each other. For example, Jewish people overwhelmingly vote Democrat. And yet you have a huge section of the Democrat Party or voters base that are incredibly hostile and view Jewish Israel as the oppressors. And so what do you do with those two groups? And so there's going to be conflict. How should we have navigated elections? How do we deal with this issue more, et cetera, et cetera? There's other groups, Islam versus LGBT rights and, feminism versus trans, right? All of these are groups that traditionally more likely to make up a Democratic base. And so you're going to see some fracturing there. But I thought it was funny, if we could be honest, maybe this will transition into the other thing I wanted to talk about this evening. Did you notice leading into the election? I thought this was interesting. Bubblegum Gun, thanks for $5. It says, Russia isn't looking for world domination. Russia's just making sure it doesn't become another American state like the Philippines, Japan, and Taiwan. Yeah. Did you notice in the lead up to the election, a lot of the big left-wing streamers that talk politics, they weren't even talking politics. There was this infighting going on. You had the Destiny and all their orbiters fighting with Twitch and Hassan and all of those people. And I saw it with Brianna Wu, who seemed more reasonable, being I don't know why I'm being I think some of what I'm seeing on the left is anti-Semitism that should be called out. And then, Brianna was I think some of the trans stuff, being a trans person themselves, I think some of the trans stuff, though, goes too far with the sports and stuff. And, there was infighting going on. But it was interesting to me because my philosophy, and I don't have near the poll of many of these left-wing people. I mean, some of these left-wing streamers have audiences of 10, 15, 20,000 people that are watching them live. I have no idea how many people watch Hassan live. I think, upon last check, that Hassan was the biggest political streamer on Twitch. I would guess Tens of thousands would be my guess. Does anyone have a general idea, like, 6 months ago, what was Hassan's audience on a regular show? I don't know. My guess would be in the tens of thousands. I know Destiny regularly gets tens of thousands, and there are people of all varying levels from there on down. 90,000. Holy smokes. Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible number of people. I mean, is that true? 90,000 people Hassan would have watching? Ben, for $5, says, not trying to derail, but thoughts on buying Greenland. I feel like it could be a peaceful way of U.S. expansion. I know it won't happen. Yeah, I would be okay with buying Greenland, but I doubt it'll happen. Oh, so it's not 90,000. It'd be like 15, 20,000 then. You've seen him get 60 to 90,000. Let's take that low number, 60,000. I mean, if you could convince half of those people to go out and vote for the side you want, that's considerable. 30,000 people, that's no joke. I'm happy. I got 135 people watching right now. I think that's amazing. Imagine. 30,000? I mean, it's really incredible. And instead of putting that into a direction that would help your side politically, they're fighting amongst each other. Now, compare that to what my strategy was. There was an awful lot of people that I could have teed up on that are traditionally right-wing. For example, there were a lot of never Trump, like DeSantis supporters or Nikki Haley supporters. When I debated those people, what did I do? Tried to convince them to vote for Trump. Tried to convince them to vote for Republicans. That's what I tried to do. And I kept it to myself, but I would tell my wife, I was like, I find it interesting that sort of the people I look at as my counterparts, except, wait, but it's not even fair to call me a counterpart because I'm streaming to 100 or so people. They're streaming to tens of thousands. And instead of like really mobilizing the effort, like let's get our team across the finish line, they're fighting amongst each other. I thought it was interesting. And now, post-election, you're seeing things like that occur, where there's this sort of weird gatekeeping. So the first I'll talk about is Cenk Uygur. So Cenk, I saw a couple Young Turks things. First you have Anna, right? Anna sort of started to realize how extreme the left became. Correct me if I'm wrong. So Anna Kasparian, who, for me, the defining moment of her career was she said something to this effect on the Young Turks. For those that don't know, she's like other than Cenk would be the biggest name on the Young Turks, a left-wing sort of politics channel. And let me also say, if you don't know the Young Turks and you're watching me, you're probably living under a rock. Good for you. But they're probably a little more mainstream than just like, even like a streamer that's big like Hassan. In fact, Hassan is Cenk's nephew. But the Young Turks actually would like get on TV and things like that. So little more mainstream, somewhere in between, just sort of like Piers Morgan, like in the world where they have one foot in the television world, one foot in the streamer. Then and Eris totally knows it. Anna, the defining moment of her career was like, F yeah, I am better than you. Talking about right-wingers, people that don't agree with her politically. That sort of arrogance and sort of contempt that you see is really incredible. And now, this is where I'm a little shaky on the facts. I'm not a regular viewer of the Young Turks, but I know my lore a little. Someone jump in here if I'm wrong. I believe what occurred was, some time ago, Anna, first off, I think Anna's been sort of seeing the extremes on some of these like trans policies, getting into women's spaces, etc. But I think what happened was she had witnessed or was a victim of some sort of crime, a burglary, a car crime, like a carjacking. Can anyone confirm something like this occurred? I believe. Maybe I have her confused with someone else, but I believe this happened. And she did what anyone who has a platform would do. If I get carjacked tomorrow, I'm probably going to come on stream and talk about it, as long as it was a sexual assault. That's horrific. Okay, nothing to joke about at all. Sexually harassed. Okay. sexual harassment not as bad as sexual assault, but nonetheless by a homeless person, which makes sense because she then started to like speak up about the problem with homelessness. And basically there was pushback against her. Shh. And we've seen this happen many times. I remember years ago, there was a case in Germany where New Year's Eve celebration publicly, there's a big crowd, and this woman was sexually assaulted by numerous people who happened to be immigrants. And she spoke up about it, and basically the community, the feminist, she was a feminist, and the community was like, shh, you can't speak up. Yeah, they were upset about her, a lot of the trans issues, like not saying birthing person. And she started to be like, look, this shit's kind of crazy. And she's right. And listen, I disagree with probably still 95% of the political positions of Anna. But there was at least something sensible about like, listen, we disagree on insurance, medical insurance policy. We disagree on taxation policy. Those sorts of things versus, no, there's no biological difference between men and women. And if you're a victim of sexual harassment or sexual assault and you're a cis woman, shh, you can't speak up about it. And so she started to wake up a little. Ben, thanks for the $5. They assumed the harmless person was black and called her racist, and she never mentioned race once. Well, there you go. That's the sort of shit you run into. So no one's looking at the same people that for years talked about women being victims. As soon as like a woman with a platform is a victim and wants to speak up, they're like, quiet. That's racist. That's, you know, making fun of the poor. They're more oppressed than you, so shut up and take it. So you started to see Anna wake up a little. Then, since the election, I've seen a little bit of it with Cenk. He had two people on his show, and they were talking about the trans issues. And Cenk's basically like, Cenk's being like a wiener, like I was last night to Nate, where it's like someone's bringing up a topic, and he's just like, yeah, you know, fuck it. Do we have to die on this hill of trans people in sports? Do we have to die on that hill? If it's gonna mean we're gonna lose elections, we gotta die on that fucking hill? That's what we gotta do? And these two guests that he's on with are like, yes, we need to. And Cenk's like, you know, if I'm pressed, I say no. They shouldn't be in women's sports. And his guests are like, and of course he's still in the bubble where he can't just be like, yeah, it's fucking insane. It's just insane bullshit. He has to be like, no, I respect. And so you start to see a little. And then, you know, he was on Pierre's show today with Alan Lichtman. Yeah, the keys to the White House guy who embarrassed himself. And Alan Lichtman does what so many of the people that make big, bolsterous claims about Democrats were going to sweep the elections, Kamala was going to cruise to victory. Well, when they're wrong, what do they say? Well, it's because of racism, misogyny, and disinformation. Wasn't our fault. We just didn't realize how racist millions of voters are. We didn't realize how misogynistic millions of voters are and how stupid they were because they were all lied to by disinformation. Sorry, that was our bad. Our models were correct. We just failed to take that into account, blaming the voters. So Alan Lichtman, whose entire shtick is, I'm more right than anyone, these keys always predict. That's his excuse. That's what he's came up with. The reason I was so wrong was because disinformation. Now, there's so many problems with that. How do you define disinformation? Can't I say that the reason Barack Obama won was because disinformation? The reason Trump lost in 2020 was because of disinformation? Now they would say that shit's not disinformation. Remember, how do they define disinformation? Things that aren't true and you didn't know, things that you're lying about that aren't true, or things that are true but are not beneficial to the narrative. That's called malinformation. And Cenk's just basically taking Lichtman to school. He was like, I mean, what Cenk said was spot on. He's like, don't blame the voters. Don't blame them. And that's absolutely, finally, someone has the right mentality. Yes, Democrats, that's what you need to do. You don't bitch and say, well, the voters are racist, they're misogynist, they're stupid, disinformation to them, that's why. You say, okay, what could we have done different? Now, it's fine if you want to make an accusation, if you want to say, well, I think Elon Musk did some untoward things. That's not blaming the voters. I would disagree with that perspective, but that's at least, I think, strategically defensible. But do you want to vote? If you're someone that was on the fence, if you're like, you know, I was real close to voting for Democrats and Kamala, but I just thought, you know, with the economic issues, I thought Trump would be better. And then you hear the Democrats' message to you is like, well, you're a racist. You hate black women. You gonna be more likely to vote for them next time? It's just bad strategy. When you blame the voters like that, then you don't have the necessary self-reflection to say, well, how do we get these voters back on our side? Now, we're a long way from the next election. We'll see what happens. But Cenk's absolutely right. And he's right. He's basically like, Lichtman, you're just stupid. Your thought process on this was dumb, and you were wrong. And Cenk's absolutely right about that. Yes, you were wrong. This dude was horribly, like, I'm not saying that Alan Lichtman should never be allowed to open his mouth in public again, but to be this horrendously wrong and to have had so much confidence and bravado going into this election, and then instead of saying, okay, I screwed up, maybe my keys are correct, but I had some of them, I was mistaken on how I applied them. And to just be like, well, it's because disinformation. It really is, like, he's really deserves to be taken down a peg or two. He really does. But then what's even more interesting about Cenk, which I thought this sums it up. Cenk takes to X, and so you have Elon Musk that's going to be working with Vivek in this DOGE, the Government Efficiency Board. And the idea is to cut back on government waste, which is great. Our government's way too big. That's half the problem. And Cenk says, he posts out on X, he says, hey, Elon, if you would appoint me to the DOGE Council or whatever, I could save you trillions of dollars by getting rid of the Pentagon, the CIA. That would save you money. And Elon responds to Cenk and says, give me specifics. So Cenk does a rundown of specifics being generous, but sort of a broad overview of what he's talking about. And then Cenk puts a post up the following day and is like, listen, I'm paraphrasing here, but he's basically like, and I understand from his perspective, he's like, what do you think the chances are if Kamala won, or during the Biden administration or the Obama administration, that anyone involved in that administration was going to listen to me about something like that? What do you think the chances are they'd even hear me out? 0. But these people were hearing me out. Now, they may not do what Cenk wanted, but they're like, we'll take your suggestions seriously. And they may very well cut a lot of money from the CIA, which they should. And for that, Cenk is being dogpiled. He sold out, says Emma of England. Oh my goodness. I saw Peace go. So do you want Elon there or not? Huh? You see? You see the problem? What if Trump, I would be completely in disagreement with this policy, but just for a thought experiment for a moment, what if Trump comes out and enshrines into law the policy that people like Cenk and many of these progressives want more than anything? What if he comes out and he's like, Medicare for all? Now, I wouldn't like that. But what if he does that? Is Cenk still supposed to hate Trump? What if RFK gets that done at HHS? Or all the people that fought for years and years and years and said that was the most important policy? Is it now that they have to say, no, we hate that. We still hate them. What if RFK calls Cenk and says, hey, we want to bring you and Bernie and some other people in to discuss Medicare for all and see what we could do? You still supposed to be like, is that still? Oh my God, I can't believe he won't condemn RFK. He won't condemn Trump. You see the problem? I'm not going to say that stuff doesn't happen on the right like that. There are people on the right that, hey, thanks, Red, for the $5. I'm not familiar with your views on foreign policy. How do you feel about the United States being a global hegemon? Cenk doesn't seem to be a fan. Well, I'll make this as brief as possible since I have other things to talk about. I believe that there is an argument for the U.S. being the global hegemon, and it probably is a good thing. The problem is our interventionist policies are ran by people that are corrupt and incompetent. So at this point, the best thing to do is to stop involving ourselves in these foreign entanglements that we see around the world until we can get people that are competent and not corrupt. That's how I feel. The U.S. is losing its hegemonic status with the neocons and neolibs that have been there, and they keep doubling down on the very policies that's caused us to lose our hegemonic status. I don't even think Cenk would be against hegemony. He would be against a lot of the wars and stuff like that that come with it, that have been used in the excuse of it. All I could say is, you can go back and you could watch my videos, my live streams, when Biden wins in 2020. My stance is always going to be the same. The things I care about are my family, starting with my wife and son, then to my extended family, my parents, my siblings, going out from there, my community, my country. And I would rather be wrong. I would rather go out there and embrace a candidate, Donald Trump in 2020, have him lose, and then have Joe Biden come in and do fantastically for those groups that I just mentioned. I would happily be like, wow, things have been pretty good. I might say, I still think the other side could do better, etc., etc. But I'm really cheering for the country to do well. So many of these people, and I know there's people on the right that weren't like that. They wanted, but it's palpable for so many people, and not just fringe people, that are Democrats and on the left. Like when Bill Maher said he would happily take a recession or depression to stop Trump from winning. When Colbert said, I'd happily pay $15 a gallon for gasoline. Starting to see the problem? Like Orwell said, there's so many people that look like Orwell was talking about the socialist, and he's like, it's not so much that they wanted to help the poor, it's that they hated the people that are winning more than them. That's the problem. I think you see that in the UK right now with their inheritance tax on farms, which is another, what a shit show the UK is becoming. I saw this farmer call into this radio show, this liberal radio host. I was watching this clip earlier today, and this farmer's talking about how devastating this inheritance tax will be on farmers. And he said, how am I supposed to pay this, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds a year for inheritance for 10 years? And the guy smugly, the radio is like, sell some of your land. Why not? And then who buys it? International banks and conglomerates? Great. I'm sure that won't have any long-lasting implications, right? But it's just a callousness. They're the kulaks. They own the farmland. They must be rich. I've talked, and it's a topic we'll get into. Even in the United States, you see some of this with like clean and green policies, etc. So, I don't know. It's interesting to me because I think that's so much of it. And so if you have someone, I'm not claiming to be a big Cenk fan, or all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, he said a couple things that I was like, oh, so now I'm a big fan. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is it's just interesting to watch someone say, oh shit, maybe this administration will do something that's considered radical or undoable that actually is a policy that I've been advocating for. That would be interesting. And there's actually a chance with that, with the Trump, to the chagrin of many traditional conservatives. Right? If you're a fiscal conservative, there's probably a lot of shit Trump's going to say and spend money on that you're like, no. But you might get some weird shit with someone like RFK at HHS that you wouldn't have got with traditional Democrats or traditional Republicans. But you just have to pretend now, oh, he's terrible. Just like with Trump. They liked Trump for years and years and years until he ran for office. Now he's Orange Hitler. Same with RFK. So I thought it was funny to see how Cenk was being attacked for that. And And then we'll transition into the last 20, 30 minutes of this or so. We'll transition into talking about me and talking about some other streamers here now. I had a bunch of people reach out to me and ask what my thoughts were on someone by the name of Brittany Simon, who I don't really know, put a video out about Destiny. I knew that the accusations wherein were sort of salacious and had to do with hookups and shit. Like, I don't care anything about that. But someone said, oh, you should watch it because Destiny admits to voter fraud in it. That, I was like, really? Red, what's up? For $2 says, do I think Russia economy tanks if war stops? I don't know. I wouldn't say that necessarily. Depends on what the fallout would be necessarily. But no, I think Russia would be willing. I think it would be beneficial economically for Russia at this point to have a peaceful resolution in their favor. So I watched some of this Brittany Simon thing, and I gotta be honest, it's one of these things where it's like, okay, I get it. A lot of people, like, in my bent of things, aren't gonna like Destiny. But, you know, when the criticism starts out, it's like, he comes from a misogynistic community and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, whatever. I don't give a shit who he hooked up with. I just don't. I just don't give a shit. I don't care. Yeah, listen. Okay, he banned Andrew for saying that he hooked up with someone or whatever. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. I just don't. I don't. I'm not saying I dislike Andrew. That's fine. I don't deal with that stuff. Other people could deal with it. Again, I'm telling you right now, if you're into that shit, I don't. That's fine. I'm not saying I'm a better person than you or anything. I grew up watching Jerry Springer, watching Steve Wilkos' show, watching Attitude Era Wrestling. That's as big of soap opera scandal bullshit as you can get. So I'm not judging anyone. It's just not what I do. Yeah, you can find it funny. You know? But I would have been interested if he said something, if it criticized him for some political take, like he advocated. I didn't watch the whole thing. I got bored shitless with it. But what I will say is, it comes back to this question of, why does it seem that so many streamers, whether it be political or just streamers in general, when they get big, they end up being shitty people? Is it because the characteristics necessary to become a big streamer are characteristics that also tend to make people shitty people, like narcissists, arrogant, combative, you know, willing to step on other people to climb up a ladder? Maybe. Or is it that once you get that, achieve like a big community like that and, you know, a lot of success, that it turns you into something? Maybe. I don't know. But I do think about things like this. And I have to tell you, from the bottom of my heart, that probably more than anything will prevent me from ever being a big streamer. Also, a lack of talent, a lack of commitment to putting into the schedule. So I don't know about more than anything. But I don't want that at all. At all. I just don't give a shit. I don't want weird relationships with other streamers where I'm showing up and doing events and we're talking about personal lives and shit. I'm 40. I have had a lot of friends in my life, a ton of them. And an absolute, I'm really lucky. I happen to have characteristics that make me sociable. I'm good in social settings. I was a good drunk when I partied. People like drinking with me. Rarely was I causing drama or fighting or anything like that. I had a ton of friends. I traveled with a band. I you know, even in high school, like I was on the homecoming court. I was on the football team. I was in show choir. I was in band. I was in the chess club. And I just, you know, in college, I was in the debate team, but I hung out with the stoners and the art kids. And like, I just always had big groups of friends, and I liked it. And I could go to a party and I could meet people. I'm 40 now. I don't need that shit. I just don't need it. There's plenty of friends that I've had in my life that I haven't talked to for years that I would love to talk to. But I got to be honest with you, and this is going to make me sound like a huge asshole, and maybe I am a huge asshole. I don't know. You tell me if this is something that you have. Sometimes I don't want to talk to them. Right? Like, do you ever like, someone that you were close with, but you haven't seen for like 10 years? And then you're in like some social setting where you're like, oh, I got to run into the store real quick and grab milk and then hurry up and get home because we need it for dinner. And you run into a friend that you haven't seen for 10 years. And then you have this like 30-minute conversation where it's like, how's it been? Oh, you went through a divorce. Yeah, where are you working at now? And part of you is just like, maybe it's better to just remember the fun times. I have this one friend, Anton. I've talked to him about this. Anton I'll bump into like every 8 years. Like, I used to hang out with him all the time in college, and then he moved to like Maryland, and he was working for Walmart, and then he quit and was working for like the patent office or something like that. And I ran into him at a Willie Nelson concert in Pittsburgh. It was Farm Aid, and he just happened to be there, and I was like, hey, Anton, what's happening? And I talked to him, I was like, I really don't want to have that conversation. He's like, yeah, fuck that, let's go get a beer. We're not going to catch up, And so then after we're drinking for a while or whatever, and just listen to music, he's like, by the way, I quit my job. I'm going to walk the Appalachian Trail. See ya. That was okay. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I don't know. But I'll tell you even more. I'm just making a point. I like my little social crew. I like hanging. I want 95% of my days to be me with my wife and my son. That's it. Now, maybe that changes as my son gets older. But that's what I want right now. That's it. And that's talking about friends that I've already established in real life. I have no desire, none, to make friends outside of that scope. If it accidentally happens, fine. But I don't want that. I don't want to be like, hey, I'm going to go to this event and I'm going to hang out with all these streamers. And like just listening, it sounded like a fucking nightmare. Listening to Brittany Simon talk about this shit where she's like, oh, well, the reason I know this stuff is because I was at this event and, we went out to dinner and I was talking to so-and-so and talking to their wife and they're telling me all these personal details. That sounds like my fucking nightmare. That sounds horrible. Like absolutely horrific. I can't think of a social situation that I want to be in less. Obviously, there are things that you would hate more, like you don't want to be starving or cripplingly sick or injured, of course. But I mean, as far as like social events, who the hell wants to be in that situation? Hey, it's a big streamer that I got. Like, imagine I went on Tim Pool's show, right? Afterwards, we played poker. I talked to the one producer guy about hockey. He's a big Bruins fan. We talked about when the the Bruins crushed the Penguins in that one playoff series and beat them in like a 4-0. That's it, it was fun. But imagine that it would have been like, all of a sudden we're sitting there and Tim's like, Rob, can I talk to you for a minute? Let me tell you about problems in my relationship. That sounds horrible. I'd been like, okay. Let me tell you about, I hooked up with this person and me and my long-term girlfriend are having these problems. What the fuck? I don't want to have direct messages with people telling me personal details in their life. I just don't want that. I don't care if you're one of the hottest women that have ever lived or if you're a billionaire. I just don't give a shit. You want to talk politics? Stuff like that? Totally different. Talk about the show? That's different. But I don't care. I just don't care about that stuff. Crisco for 10 Canadian dollars. Thanks, man. Says, Rob, are you saying you wouldn't sit there and watch anime with you? I would do something like that. But that's different. Doing stuff with like a community and that sort of vibe is different than like what I'm talking about. But anyways, I want to get back to why are so many streamers shitty people? Is it that you're shitty to get big, or is it once you're big you get shitty? And I have to be honest with people. There's a lot of people that blow smoke up my ass about what a good person I am. I'm not a very good person. I'm not. That's just the honest truth. And I seriously mean this. I'm not like, oh, I'm saying that so people think I am. I'm not. I'm fucking petty. I'm combative. There's part of me that's like way too fucking arrogant. It's true. It just really is. People will try to do nice things for me, and I instantly am like, fuck, I gotta deal with this person. Maybe I will become a big streamer because of those shitty characteristics that I have. So last night in the show, Nate, who's on here, who donates money to me all the time, I basically get a little frustrated with the question that he asked 2 or 3 times, and I become a huge dickhead about it. Why? And I felt fucking horrible when I got done streaming. He's like, why was I doing that? What the fuck was the point? Caleb, another person. I don't know Caleb that well, but I was like, fuck you if you don't call into the show Friday. Why? What's the point? Ben, thanks for $2, says, hey dude, I'm a piece of shit too. I'd be like that. I don't know why. Maybe I'm partly bipolar. Maybe I'm just a fucking dickhead. I don't know. People will send me a message. Hey man, you know what you should have said in this debate? And like my gut feeling's like, fuck you. Why don't you debate then? Why is that my reaction? It's horrible. People are just trying to be friendly. And I gotta work on it. I really do. It's a terrible characteristic. Max, yeah. So I'm trying to be honest with people. I need to be less of an asshole like that, but I also have to be honest. When I do the show and the show ends, I kind of like that to be the end of it. And oftentimes what happens is people are trying to be generous and help out in certain ways, and it comes across as building a relationship that I really had no interest in building. And I'm not going to talk about a lot of the details. I can just tell you this. There is part of me that is sympathetic with some of these big streamers where I understand how maybe they become so standoffish, because as a small streamer, I could tell you fucking insane stories of shit that I've dealt with. And if you're thinking, is he talking about me? Probably not. If you're thinking, is he talking about me? Then you're probably not that person. And it puts me in an awkward spot because I'm trying to be... I remember this, like, maybe a story will help say what I'm trying to think. There was this band that I used to listen to. I was always, like, when it came to music, a lot of the shit that I liked was older. So, like some of my favorite bands are, like, The Band or The Dire Straits. And I never had the opportunity to go see them. So, now you don't have to call in Caleb, it's fine. You know, some of the older bands I suppose I could have went to, but I always had a hard time paying like $200 for it. Oh, go see AC/DC. Now I went to Ozfest. I used to go there every year, so I saw like Iron Maiden and a bunch of bands that I liked. But there were a lot of older bands that I never got the chance to see. And now at this point, being 40, the bands I was listening to that were heyday was the 70s and 80s, they're getting older and older, so the chances are probably dying down anyways. But I would go to a lot of like smaller punk and metal shows. I was never like an aficionado though. I believe my enjoyment of music was what I would call casual. And some people could tell you like, oh, this song's off the 3rd album. I was never someone that could do that. I just wasn't, right? That doesn't mean I didn't like music, but anyways, if this person's listening, they'll know. I won't say their name, but they'll know I'm talking about them, and I feel bad for that. But I'll just speak as vaguely as possible without giving specific names. There was this band called Mushroomhead, and they were sort of a smaller band. I thought they were very talented, though. Very similar to, like, Slipknot. I don't know much about this, but my friends that were huge into Mushroomhead, I believe said that Mushroomhead sort of did the mask stuff and the big entourage band thing before Slipknot. That could be untrue. I don't know. But Striper, yeah. But I liked Mushroomhead. And it was, you know, it was like a... I'm not going to say they're the most talented metal band I ever heard, but it was like a performance. Like, they're all wearing masks. They had this one, like, they would, you know, have the lights going on, and then they would have a guy with, like, a big bass drum on its... sitting on its back, and they would pump water through it, and then they would hit it, and it would, like, you would see the water spraying, but because of, like, the neon lights and shit in the background, it was just like a production. It was cool, you know. if you're wondering, like, if you don't know who Slipknot and stuff is, maybe picture, it doesn't sound the same, but like Marilyn Manson with the face paint and shit like that. And so it was like a theatric performance, you know, and that shit matters in music for a live show. Alice Cooper, for example, was big into theatrics. I think spot on. I love Alice Cooper. I think he's great. Very great Christian, Alice Cooper. I don't know if you knew that, but listen to some of Alice Cooper's conversations. It's absolutely amazing. Oh, Andrew Wilson's starting his whatever appearance now, so I understand if some people leave. Totally cool. Guar, I've seen Guar. Yeah, Landed Man Warning. Thanks for the $5. Says, did I say I was in a band? You seem like a sax player. Most are crappy people that they realize they're trying to make changes to the good ones. No, I basically roadied for a band. I played in band in high school, and I did play trumpet, and may have been on the back of a band or two's soundtrack just because I was drinking there, and they were like, hit this drum or hit this trash can. But no, I was never in a band. So anyways, Mushroomhead. Now, Mushroomhead had 2 lead singers, and one of them, like, people don't understand this. Like, you'll like a band like that, and then you find out, like, they're not making a go of it just being in a band. So if they're not independently wealthy, they have jobs. So the lead singer for Mushroomhead, his name was Waylon, and he worked at GameStop, like, in Ohio. So I had this friend that was, like, obsessed with the band Mushroomhead. And he was a very good friend of mine. And he used to travel all the time to see him, and I would go occasionally. And they got all these other friends that were also obsessed with Mushroomhead. And so I was periphery. I would just go out with these people, and they're like super fans. And I'm like, pretty cool. Sitting at the bar having a beer, watching the band play, cool. No big deal, right? And I was around, and I'm trying to be as polite as possible when I say this. My friends group was the most piss fucking annoying people that you can imagine. Like the gothic equivalent of like a T Swift fan or something. Like, like losing it, shit like that. They weren't yelling like that, but it was like, that's how into it they were. And so it would always be this. I would be there with this group. By the way, they were all straight edge. So none of them drank. They were always giving me shit for drinking. They didn't drink, they didn't smoke or anything. Okay, whatever. And you always had to wait until you had to be the last people out of the venue, until the venue kicked you out. Oh, maybe they'll come say hi to us. And I'll be damned if I didn't see these people in Mushroomhead. Not all of them, but many of them every time would come talk to these people. And you could tell it was awkward because the members of the band, they're normal dudes. They got a mask on, they're playing, they're doing what they like, but they're working at GameStop. And to these fans, though, there's something more. And so they come out because they appreciate their fans, and they don't remember these fans' names, but there they recognize, hey, how have you guys been? Oh, blah, 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 oh my God, it's so great. And running up, giving them hugs. Can you sign this for me, whatever? And you can see it that, like, you just get done playing this long-ass show, and you're probably sweaty and tired, and you just want to go back to the hotel. Or maybe you're a drinker or a partier. I don't know. But you probably don't want to, like, sit here with these straight-edge kids and be like, And it always impressed upon me, those guys in that band, it was like, good for them. Like, you can tell this isn't their favorite thing, but they're doing it. Sometimes that's how I feel. Sometimes I feel like a normal guy that works at GameStop, but people will contact me like I'm a big deal, and I'm not. I'm just a fucking normal guy. That's it. And I never want to be anything that's not a normal guy. If I become Elon Musk wealthy, I still want to be a normal guy. And I don't want people to treat... I said this when I was running for Congress. I want to be a congressperson that could go grocery shopping in my town and have someone come up and go, Rob, what the fuck? What'd you do voting for that bill? And I'd say, yeah, I know. Here's how I came to the decision. A normal guy. Because the way I look at life, the people I respect the most are like the welders and the bartenders and the carpenters. That's the people I like hanging out with. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, I guess. I guess sometimes I'm a prick and I need to work on it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I like money. I want to be fucking stinking rich so that I could buy an RV and me and my wife and my son and any of my family that wants to come with me can cruise around the country and visit cool shit. I think that'd be amazing. I'll happily take money. I think there'd be a limit. Like once I make like $25 million, maybe I'd be like, I just don't give a shit anymore. But I definitely, I'm greedy. I'll take money. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't want fame. I don't. Or rather, I don't want that part of fame. I think it'd be cool if everyone's like, we need a right-wing debater. Who is it? Oh, Rob Noor, he's good. That's great. But the idea of like, yeah, Paul McCartney, that too. Yeah, it's I don't know. But I just felt bad for Nate last night. I apologize. I apologize to Caleb. I apologize to anyone else. If you're wondering why, if you communicate with me behind the scenes a lot and I don't get back to you, a lot of it's because I'm very busy. But a lot of it too is because it's like, I just don't know. I don't know how to put it in words. I don't know. In the littlest ways you wouldn't believe. Someone reaches out to me, emails me. I say, hey, thanks so much, man. Great to hear from you. And then they're like, can I have your home address? I want to send you something. Sure. I was wondering if you got time to talk. Can I have your phone number? Sure. Now I get phone calls once a week. It's no one here now. That's not what I'm saying. Tainted Oli, thanks for the $5. Don't become like Destiny. His assholes and driving people away. Maybe. I'm not talking about anyone in my community now. I'm talking like this is 3-4 years ago. Where I would get 5, 6, 7 phone calls a day from a particular person. And I didn't know how to be like, what the fuck are you doing? If I didn't answer on the third time, you couldn't have came to the conclusion like, that's different than like emails. If you send 3 emails, I just won't respond. But your phone ringing, it's like, my wife's, I work 70 to 80 hours a week. Then I stream when I'm home 3 weeknights, at least 2 hours a night. For example, I debated Grayson Hawk last week. That was a 5-hour stream. So put yourself in my wife's perspective, who's been there with Hank's almost 4. He's a cool kid, but still dealing with a kid by yourself half the week while I'm gone. Then I come home and I'm like, hey, let's have dinner. Great. Okay, now I got to go stream for 5 hours. And then she's cool with all that. And then it's like, I get up and it's like, oh, now I got to call people or communicate with people and, and do this and that for the next hour and a half. Well, she's trying to talk to me like in bed. And I'll give you an example. There was one of these exchanges I was having. What was this guy's name? Avi or whatever, that's like a DGG guy. And one of his people, I was up until like 1:30 in the morning setting up terms of this debate about January 6th and the semantical definition, the standard legal definition of the term insurrection. How's that fair to my wife? And I'm just fucking sitting there. And she's like, oh, I'm like an absentee husband and father. That's why I said from the bottom of my heart, when I'm done with the stream, it's like, I want to be done. That's why I got awesome people like Black Elk. Black Elk's like, yeah, fuck, man. I'll clip your shit. I'll put it out there. Great. I talk to Black Elk once in a blue moon. Maybe once every 2 weeks, I call Black Elk on the phone. We discuss what we're doing with the show. That's great. That doesn't feel like work at all. Totally understandable. But I don't know. I just don't know. And I could see how it would quickly become unmanageable. Like, if Andrew Wilson, for example, did the same sort of interactions that I'm doing with people, and instead of having 100 people watching, he's got 1,500 or 2,000. If he's dealing with 10 times that amount, at some point you have to just be like, I can't do this. I don't know how many people will be pardoned by Trump. Hopefully a lot of the nonviolent January 6th people. So I don't know. But I just wanted to say to Nate and to everyone else, I'm sorry, sometimes I could be an asshole. And, you know, I could say, well, you know, I had a rough day at work or whatever, but that's not really an excuse. That's bullshit. And, you know, it's ridiculous that there's so many people. Max has offered to help me out. He's been very nice. Ben, thanks so much for the $5. Make sure you keep servicing her. I don't have to explain why. Come on now. We'll talk about that stuff. But, you know, people try to help you out, and then I bring all of my bullshit baggage, and that's not fair to those people. It's really not. So I need to find a better way of managing it. I need to find a better way of just being more upfront with, like, my personal time is my personal time. I appreciate if you communicate with me outside of when I'm streaming or whatever. Maybe I'll get back to you. Maybe I won't. Please take no offense to it. And I need to stop being a prick to people on my channel that are decent to me, like Nate was last night. It's not fair to people. It's really not. So it's something that I'm actually going to work on. I think I've done a good job of, when I'm debating people, trying to be less of a prick on the outset. And, you know, I still know people say, oh, your voice gets loud and whatever. It's just how I talk. I'm sorry. But I do need to work at that sort of stuff. I really do. So I am sorry. I'm not so out. I wish. It's like one of my favorite band, Weens. Ween, they're like, oh, your fans love you because you never sold out. They're like, we're trying. That's how I feel. I'm trying to sell out. So I don't know. I just... But seeing that today, people are like, yeah, this Brittany Simon thing, did you watch that? And the whole thing, I was like, what a fucking nightmare. What an absolute nightmare. Sitting around back, you know, after you collaborate with someone and gossiping about fucking love life and stuff. Oh, my God. What are you doing? I don't know, man. And I've never been that type of guy, believe it or not. I used to hang around with a pretty eclectic group of friends, and none of us were like, oh, we hooked up with this chick last night. Oh, like, no one gave a shit. And I was never hooking up with a bunch of chicks, but I had friends that were, but they weren't really talking about it. It was just, like, our one friend, he was big on Craigslist. He always had a new date from Craigslist. No one gave a shit. It was all whatever. No, I'm saying the opposite. It's not that I'm a good one. I'm not. I'm a prick. I really am. I really am. You have no idea. Like, someone literally right now in chat could be like, hey, Rob, next time you debate abortion, you should say this. And my immediate fucking lizard brain's going to be like, fuck that guy. Who are they to tell me what to do? That's not a good person. That's not what someone who's good does. It's a really shitty characteristics. Thanks, Landon, for the $5. Hope you're not feeling burned out. I'd be willing to help out in any way to keep you going. Got to keep your sanity. No, I don't feel like I'm burned out. I feel like I like doing the videos. But just you know, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Videos, good. Behind the scenes shit, not good. There you see, Ben gets it right out of the gate. I'm like, fuck you, Ben. So that's it. That's what I had to say tonight. So I again, apologies if you're out there and you've reached out to me and I haven't gotten back to you, or you feel like I'm ghosting you. And there's many of you. I'm sorry. That doesn't mean that I'm going to change that situation. I'm probably going to continue to not get back in touch. I'll give you one example. I had like 3 years ago, someone was like, hey man, I just was wondering if you had any advice how to get into streaming. And I sent him an email and was like, yeah. And that led to like, no bullshit, like 30 emails back and forth. And me being the prick I am, I'm like, it's like a chore. But then I'm like, to this other person, they're like, I'm like that guy in Mushroomhead that works at GameStop, where it's like, wow, I value this guy. I wonder what his opinion is. But I'm looking at it like, I don't have time for this shit. And that's not good. That's not a good characteristic. And I think it's unreasonable to ask me to change. It's unreasonable to ask me like, well, if your channel gets bigger, sorry, you're just going to have to deal with that more and more and more. So I think the way you do it is you just say, I have to be upfront and be like, thanks so much. I'm glad you like the show. I did talk about my wife a little bit. She's not that great. But I just have to be more upfront with boundaries. Like, yeah, glad you like the show. Here's a little advice, and then be honest with it. Crisco for $5. Thanks so much. Uh, Says too many people think you're always on the clock and don't respect boundaries. It happens to me too. You just have to say no and enforce it. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. But so I'm gonna try to be a better person. I'm sorry I was sort of a surly asshole yesterday. Got to get better with that sort of shit. I do. So hold me to account. My wife is not a doctor now. My wife is a mom. She worked at a bank, but we decided that one of us should be staying home. Most important job, and of course, it makes more sense for her because moms are the best. So, um, yeah, maybe I'm thinking about it too much. So, anyways, that's it for tonight's show. Tomorrow, supposedly, I'm interviewing Scott Horton. I'm waiting to hear back from them. If not, we'll just do a regular show. That'll probably be around 7 p.m. Eastern time. Thursday, we'll do a show. Friday, probably will be a call-in show in the morning. So if you're interested in calling in and giving me a piece of your mind, I'll try to be in a bit better mood than I was yesterday. Though the Friday calling shows have always been pretty good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talk Scott. We'll talk some Russia, Ukraine. So I make the big bucks. Yeah, baby. Almost said RV. Also, I do know that I owe two things. I owe my audience for sure. I owe you a 10,000 sub episode. So I got to come up with ideas for that. I'm going to find some time. That's probably going to be like 2 weeks' time. Let's get past Thanksgiving and before Christmas. We're going to have that 10,000 sub episode there. I'm trying to come up with some ideas of things that I want to do for that. And then I also am going to start some sort of members only content. I'm not exactly sure what that'll look like now. I'm kicking around some ideas. In addition to that, we're going to start, I'm going to get in touch with Black Elk. We got a great idea. I think this might have to do with some of the members only content. Members only, I think one of the things we're going to do with members is allow you at least one show a week to control the direction of that show. We want to do debate reviews, but reviews of like 20-minute clips of debate. So you can't send me a debate that's like 2 hours because my review of that debate will be like 7 hours. But if you send me like 20 minutes and I can analyze that 20 minutes, then that's probably an hour or 2 hour show. So we're thinking of doing stuff like that. So maybe if you're a member, we'll allow you to get your suggestions in for some debates to review. I can't promise I'll do all of them that people suggest, but if you send me the clip, or more importantly, what would be better is we'll get some way for you to put them on Discord, on my Discord, and so my editor, Black Elk, will clean that up, then give me the edited portion that he wants me to review. And I think that'll work well. I think that'll be some good content that we'll be able to look into. But yeah, any upcoming debates with Destiny? Well, he blocked me on X, and he's blacklisted me from his channel. So I would say no. I would say the chance. Someone told me that he told Pisco he's not allowed to talk to me. I just don't give a shit. To each their own, man. But as debates come, I will accept them. I have other things. When it comes to growing the channel and like sort of big collaborations I could do, I want to work more with Alex Stein and with the people in the Blaze. I think that would be a good opportunity. I want to work with John Ward here in State College. Blacklisted means that he's not going to talk to me. I'm not welcome on the show ever again. So I think those are opportunities, that I could look forward to. And maybe we'll get back on Tim Pool's show. I heard scuttlebutt that whatever podcast, which I will not do whatever and go yell at OnlyFans girls. Not because I think it's morally reprehensible or something, but because it's not who I am. I'm just not going to do it. But I did hear that they're looking to set up some like actual political debates. That I would do. I would do political debates, no problem. So maybe someday you'll see me and Andrew travel out there and do a 2-on-2 political debate against someone. Don't know. It's way out in Cali, though. I've never been out that far. Furthest I've ever been is Dallas. So I'm not big on traveling. I like to stay around here. What did I think of my appearance on Timcast? I had fun. I thought I was only invited for the morning show. I thought it went very well. I really liked the guest that I was on, Uygur, that I was on with. I thought he was great. Then I stuck around, and they asked me to do the evening show, and it was a lot of Israel-Palestine bullshit that I basically didn't have anything to add. And it was pretty, tempers were flaring. But I enjoyed the team around Tim. I enjoyed talking with Tim. I thought he was a pleasant host. Enjoyed being on the show. Thought I did very well. I don't know how much of that team's still around. I think Tim's shuffled his team a little. It's kind of a bummer because I liked a lot of those guys, but you have no idea what the work situation was like there. I don't know, but it was perfectly fine. I enjoyed it, and it's an ideal show for me to go on because it's only a few hours from where I live. So I think it was 3.5 hours or something, as opposed to like going to California or something. So maybe I'll reach out to Tim's people and get back on the show, do a post-election show there with Tim. The idea was to line up someone to debate me. That was the idea, and they couldn't find anyone to debate me. So I would love that opportunity. I would love to do like the little Piers Morgan call-ins. Don't you think I would be fantastic on there, arguing against Cenk and Mehdi and Destiny? I think I would be great. Normally, you know, I'm not trying to talk shit on anyone, but who do you think would be better at pushing back, me or Dave Rubin? But I don't have the audience for it, and so I'm still a relative unknown when it comes to those sorts of opportunities. But that's okay. We'll keep plugging away. Most important thing for me is to remember to have fun, to appreciate my audience, and to try to make a positive difference. I would love to debate David Pakman. I think that would be a fun opportunity. Mehdi Hassan would be someone I would really love to debate. I would love to. He's so arrogant. I would love to debate him. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So, all right. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to hang up here and call my wife if she's still listening. See if I can say goodnight to my son. Though, Hank, this maniac's been staying up way later. So, like, I used to call around 9 o'clock every night while I'm at work and just say my goodnights. Now he's not going to bed till, like, midnight. Like, he's going to bed, but he's just not sleeping. He's playing around, jumping around, you know, that sort of stuff. So, but I'll still call here. And I got some paperwork to do, so. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate... Oh, there she is. Okay. Appreciate all of you. I should see you tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll be interviewing Scott Horton. If not, we'll still be doing a show around 7 o'clock. You guys are the best. Thank you for all the donations. That'll go to the RV fund. Remember, we're trying to raise $125,000 so I could buy an RV, and me and my wife could travel around the country. It'd be great. Hell, we'll even stream as we're traveling. How's that? So, thank you guys so much. Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. As always, have a good one.